What if I told you that Netflix just quietly assembled the most dangerous sci-fi lineup in streaming history, and almost nobody is talking about it? These are not safe movies. These are not comfort watches. Some will leave you staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., questioning everything you thought you understood about intelligence, about humanity, and about what comes next. This is the list that separates the real sci-fi fans from the people who just want pretty explosions. Number 10. Ex Machina, 2014. Let us start with a question that never gets old. Can a machine trick you into loving it? Ex Machina does not ask that question politely. It walks up to you in a glass house in the middle of nowhere and dares you to answer. Caleb is a programmer who wins a company contest and gets flown out to his CEO's remote estate. The prize is supposed to be special. It turns out to be terrifying. Nathan, the CEO, has built Ava. She is a humanoid artificial intelligence with transparent limbs and eyes that study you like a scientist studying a specimen. Caleb is asked to perform a Turing test. What he does not realize is that he is not the scientist in this experiment. He is the subject. Director Alex Garland strips every scene down to pure psychological pressure. There is no action. There is no chase. There is only a series of conversations that slowly dismantle everything Caleb believes about consciousness and free will. Alicia Vikander's performance as Ava is one of the most controlled and quietly devastating things ever put on screen. She never overplays. She never telegraphs. She simply watches and waits. The film won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, but the effects were never the point. The point is the manipulation. The point is the moment you realize the movie has been doing to you exactly what Ava has been doing to Caleb. And by then, it is already too late. This is where the list begins, and trust me, it only gets heavier from here. Number 9. District 9, 2009. Forget everything you know about alien invasion movies. Neil Blomkamp shot this film in actual informal settlements in Soweto with a handheld camera and approximately zero patience for Hollywood convention. The result is one of the most viscerally uncomfortable sci-fi films ever made, and it is sitting on Netflix right now, waiting for you. 1 million alien refugees have been stranded above Johannesburg for 20 years. They live in a slum called District 9. They eat cat food. They are called prawns. The government has decided it is time to relocate them. Vickis van de Merwe is the bureaucrat assigned to deliver eviction notices. What follows is not what you expect. Blomkamp builds his film as a faux documentary, complete with news broadcast intercutting and talking head interviews. The formal choice is not stylistic, it is an argument. This is how atrocity gets administered, through paperwork, through recorded procedure, through a man who thinks he is just doing his job. Sharto Copley plays Vickis as one of the great transformations in genre cinema history. He begins as a bumbling, officious middle manager and becomes something else entirely. The alien exoskeleton suits were built as wearable, practical rigs for performers before digital creatures were composited over them, which is why every interaction between human and alien feels physically real. The film was shot on a budget fraction of its American counterparts. It looks like a war documentary and hits like one too. Number 8. Nope, 2022. Jordan Peele looked at the UFO genre and decided it was not nearly scary enough. So he rebuilt it from scratch on a horse ranch in the California desert and made something that will permanently change how you feel about looking up at the sky. O.J. and M. Haywood run a Hollywood horse training ranch that their family has operated for generations. Strange things have been happening. Coins raining from the sky, animals behaving wrong, a cloud that never moves. O.J. notices it first. M wants to film it. What lives in that cloud does not want to be filmed. Here is what makes Nope different from every other alien movie. The creature does not invade. It does not attack cities. It does not send messages. It simply feeds. And it feeds on attention. Look at it and you die. The horror is in the gaze itself. Peele is making an argument about spectacle and about the way we consume and are consumed by images, and he is doing it inside a genuinely terrifying monster movie. Daniel Kaluuya barely speaks for most of the film. He does not need to. Keke Palmer is kinetic energy in human form. The two together create a sibling dynamic that feels completely lived in, and the film uses their contrast to drive its tension. The cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema is staggering. Every frame of that valley feels both beautiful and deeply wrong. Number 7. Upgrade, 2018. Here is a movie that was made for $5 million and proceeds to outthink every $100 million sci-fi blockbuster released in the same decade. Lee Winnell built Upgrade in Melbourne, using the city's brutalist architecture as a near-future environment that needed almost no set dressing. The result is one of the leanest, most precise genre films in recent memory. Gray Trace is a mechanic who loves working with his hands in a world where everything is automated. After a mugging kills his wife and leaves him paralyzed, he accepts an experimental AI implant called STEM. He can walk again. He can do considerably more than walk. What Winnell understood that most directors miss is that the horror of the film is not the villain. The horror is the body. STEM does not ask permission, it simply acts. Logan Marshall Green plays a man whose limbs are being piloted by something smarter than him, and the stunt choreography developed to show this is genuinely unlike anything else in the genre. His upper body stays almost passive while his arms and legs move with cold, mechanical precision. It required months of training, and it is still technically astonishing. STEM's voice was designed as internal rather than external. Always calm, always intimate, always one step ahead. When its final agenda lands, it does not feel like a twist. It feels like a betrayal you somehow did not see coming, even though the film put every clue right in front of your face. Cold, clinical, and razor sharp. $5 million has never worked this hard. Number 6. The Atom Project, 2022. Time travel stories usually ask big questions about history and consequence. The Atom Project asks a smaller question. What would you say to yourself if you could go back? And it turns out that question is much harder to answer than rewriting the timeline. Ryan Reynolds plays Adam Reed. He is a fighter pilot from 2050 who steals a jet and travels back to 2022. He crash lands and runs into his 12-year-old self, played by Walker Scobell, in a performance that is either extraordinary casting or inspired coaching, and is probably both. Scobell mirrors Reynolds' physical cadence so precisely it reads as genetic. The film is built on grief. Adam's father died when he was young. Adam never resolved it. The time travel is not really about saving the future. It is about a grown man who still has not forgiven himself for not saying the right things to a father who disappeared before there was time to say them. Director Sean Levy shot the future sequences with a colder, clinical color palette, and the 2022 sequences with deliberately warm tones. It is a visual argument about what we lose when we race toward tomorrow. Mark Ruffalo plays the father with a restraint that works against Reynolds' kinetic energy like a counterweight, and the combination gives the film's emotional core its actual gravity. Blockbuster packaging. Surprisingly sturdy filmmaking underneath. The kind of movie that hits harder the second time once you know where it is going. Number 5. Don't Look Up, 2021. Two scientists discover a comet that will end all life on Earth in 6 months. They have the data. They have the math. They have absolute certainty. And nobody cares. Adam McKay made this film as a satirical disaster movie, and the tragedy is that it gets more accurate with every passing year. Kate Dibiasky and Dr. Randall Mindy go to the White House and are told to sit on the findings until after the midterms. They go on television and become a meme. A tech billionaire convinces the government not to destroy the comet because it contains rare minerals worth trillions. The comet is coming. The planet is having a conversation about something else entirely. Jennifer Lawrence plays Kate as a woman watching the world choose its own death and being unable to process the absurdity of it. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Randall as a scientist who slowly learns that being taken seriously requires performing certainty in ways that feel more like show business than science. Together, they are devastating. The film was dismissed on release as too blunt, as too on the nose. Those critics missed the point. It is supposed to be on the nose. The thing it is describing is on the nose. The comet does not care about nuance. The satire works because the behavior it is mocking is not subtle. The film's final 30 minutes abandon comedy entirely, and what is left is one of the most genuinely upsetting endings in mainstream cinema of the decade. Number 4. The Creator, 2023. Gareth Edwards spent years making massive studio films, and then he took a Sony FX3 camera to Southeast Asia and made something that no soundstage could ever replicate. The Creator is a war film. It is also the most emotionally honest AI movie since Ex Machina, and it arrives at its conclusions from a completely different direction. The premise is a future war between humanity and artificial intelligence. Joshua Taylor is a soldier sent to destroy the ultimate AI weapon. The weapon turns out to be a child. A small, gentle AI named Alfie who has no idea what she represents to either side of the conflict. Edwards and his cinematographer shot across Thailand, Cambodia, and Nepal using real locations as a future world, rather than building sets. The production design layered retrofitted technology onto existing infrastructure, creating a visual language of a future that grew organically rather than being engineered. The result is a world that feels genuinely inhabited rather than constructed. John David Washington carries a grief so specific and so understated that the film's emotional punches accumulate across the entire runtime rather than arriving in isolated, manufactured moments. He is not performing loss. He is transporting it. The film is massive in ambition and jagged in certain moments of execution. The final act earns every tear it pulls from you. When the credits roll, the question it leaves behind is not about technology. It is about who we decide counts as a person and what we are willing to do to protect that decision from the truth. Number 3. I Am Mother, 2019. Picture this. You have never seen the sun. You have never met another human being. The only parent you have ever known is a 7-foot robot with a warm voice and a curriculum designed to rebuild civilization. You are 17. And then a stranger knocks on the door and tells you everything your mother said is a lie. I Am Mother operates in a single location for almost its entire runtime. A bunker, a robot, a teenager. Director Grant Spator built the entire set practically at a studio in Melbourne, giving the film's spatial logic a physical consistency that makes the plot's revelations land with genuine weight. The mother suit was worn by a real actor, with Rose Byrne providing the voice. The decision to physically embody the character rather than create a CGI figure gives her a presence in the frame that generates authentic ambiguity about her intentions. Clara Rugard carries the film, as a young woman raised with love and raised without context. Her dawning comprehension of what has been done to her and why plays with a stillness that amplifies rather than deflects the horror. Hilary Swank arrives as the outsider, and her presence detonates everything the daughter thought she understood. The script withholds information with surgical patience. Every new revelation feels genuinely earned rather than mechanically deployed. The ending resolves its central question while opening a larger one about what it means to be raised by something that loves you and lies to you and believes those two things are the same. Number 2. Godzilla -1. 2023. The most important thing to understand about this film before you watch it is this. It is not a monster movie. It is a film about survivor guilt, and Godzilla is the physical manifestation of everything a broken nation cannot face about itself. The kaiju is not the antagonist. The protagonist's inability to believe he deserves to survive is the antagonist. Post-war Japan, 1945. A country that has been physically and spiritually demolished encounters a force of destruction so absolute it can only be experienced as punishment. Director Takashi Yamazaki wrote the film, directed it, and supervised every visual effect himself. A production model that is virtually unheard of at this scale and at his level of ambition. Ryunosuke Kamiki plays Koichi Shikishima, a kamikaze pilot who turned back at the critical moment. He came home. His squadron did not. His village was destroyed. He cannot find a reason to have survived, and then Godzilla arrives and gives his death wish a legitimate target. The Godzilla design was deliberately stripped of the familiar, leaner, faster, shot without the ironic distance that decades of franchise entries have accumulated. The attack sequences use extended silence followed by white light detonation, to replicate the psychological shock of bombardment rather than the visual grammar of monster movies. This film won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, the first Japanese film to ever do so, achieved on a budget a fraction of its American competitors. The budget is irrelevant. What matters is that every frame was made by someone who had something to say. Number 1. Jurassic World Rebirth, 2025. Every entry on this list has been building toward this. The film sitting at number 1 is not here because of franchise nostalgia. It is not here because of name recognition. It is here because it took one of the most exhausted properties in blockbuster history and made it genuinely terrifying again. 5 years after the events of Dominion, the dinosaur population has collapsed. The creatures can only survive in equatorial zones where the climate matches their biology. A pharmaceutical company has discovered that the 3 largest surviving prehistoric species produce compounds that could revolutionize treatment of cardiac disease. Someone needs to go and extract DNA samples from living animals in the wild, alive, in close range, without getting eaten. Scarlett Johansson leads a covert operations team onto an isolated tropical island that was once the original research facility for the very first Jurassic Park. What they find there has not been cataloged. What they find there has been evolving in isolation for decades without human interference and without human fear. The film strips the franchise back to its fundamental terror. Not wonder, not spectacle, terror. The dinosaurs in Rebirth are not attractions. They are apex predators in their own environment, and the humans are the invasive species. Every sequence is built on the understanding that nothing about these animals is safe, and nothing about this island is survivable through cleverness alone. This is the film that broke records. This is the film that reminded everyone why the franchise started in the first place. And this is exactly what Netflix 2026 looks like at its absolute best. You just watched 10 films get the respect they actually deserve. Save this list. Share it with someone who still thinks Netflix has nothing good. And if even one of these movies keeps you up tonight, then the algorithm finally did something right. Subscribe, because next time, the list gets even darker.